There are no accidents. Intention drives action. All the energy, killer, spectacular. There are no accidents, no valid excuses. Failure notwithstanding of my inner master. No, notwithstanding all spirit power, no need for forgiveness, reveals in disaster how the edge of human perception reclines in a cesspool. There are no accidents. I meant this to happen. She did too. And in her own way, she begged for that bullet. So now as I kill myself by keeping this asshole alive, the only escape that makes any sense keeps flashing before me, inviting me. Okay, that's my first attempt to channel the spirit and the voice of William S. Burroughs. I'm going to try to. I needed that. William S. Burroughs, who bears no resemblance to me, of course. And we're looking for a tall, thin bass baritone. Everybody knows one. We'll refer to him as Ghost, just Ghost throughout, okay? It's the ghost of William S. Burroughs. He's dead. In fact, everybody in this production is dead. They're spirits. But they can still sing, because in the opera, anything can sing. The first song, which I just previewed there, that's cold open, happens after the curtain rises. The ghost is on stage with one other character, the investigator. The investigator is kind of an amalgam of a great poet named Ed Sanders, who was an important poet to me. He wrote a book called Investigative Poetry, which you try to check it out. I think it's still in print. And he's working on this multi-part verse history of the United States. That's the first volume, which ends, I think, in 1939. Also, another great poet, Charles Olson, who was Ed's kind of inspiration, one of the founders of the investigative poetry school of literature. It's the idea that poetry isn't some fantasy made up, it's about the real world. And that's where the imagination gets its stuff, okay? So that's the idea. The investigator is like an emissary of the Council of Dead Poets, and he's come to evaluate the merits of William S. Burroughs as part of the pantheon of literary greats. All the shit that Burroughs did, is he still considered one of the great writers of the 20th century? Ed Sanders is also the founder of a rock and roll band called the Fugs. The Fugs kind of invented the crazy school of rock and roll in the early 60s. And Ed started a bookstore in New York called the Peace Eye Bookstore. It was the center of the downtown Manhattan counterculture in the early 60s. While the Fugs were touring, people would basically camp out there. A literary center in Manhattan. Act 3 tonight takes place in the Peace Eye Bookstore, where all you guys with the lines will rise up with your voices and bring these writers back to life. Ed, by the way, also wrote a book about the Manson family called The Family. And I've been in touch with him. He's interested in this project. He's in his 80s now, and he's not traveling, but he would have come out here. We're going to send him a video or bring him into the piece. As Act 1 opens, our chorus The readers, some of you all are in that role for the last act, are on the stage. They're going to take various roles. If you hear me say something about readers, that's what we're talking about. It's really the chorus, and they are grips, stagehands, singers, actors. Okay, is everybody all good with your part in Act 3, and so far so good? Yeah. Act 1, Scene 1. Here's the setting. A dingy South Texas hotel room, a small wooden table, 2 chairs, a dresser with clothes spilling out, a hat and books all around, an unmade bed. Readers lurk in the background. Ghost is standing, holding on to the back of his chair as if to steady himself. An open laptop computer is on the table before him. He's apparently just been asked a question by the investigator, who is seated with him at the table as the curtain rises. Investigator says nothing but gestures impatiently after a moment of silence for the ghost to respond, which is the part that I sang a moment ago. As he trails off invitingly, the ghost sits and stares silently for a moment at the laptop. A couple of readers come over with a manual typewriter offering to swap. They seem to be serving as a kind of tech support for the old apparition. He makes it clear that he prefers the new technology. Ghost rises, puts on the fedora. Encouraged by the readers, he pushes a button on a laptop. Mariachi music fills the room. He's pacing. Suddenly he turns it off. Something like that. We're working on time. Pause. 4 beats. The readers retreat to a respectful distance, the rear of the stage. They're in shadow. The video screen drops, displaying an abstract scene of monsters, misfits, shifting sands, the streets in New York, New Orleans, Mexico City, Tangier, all barely recognizable. A close-up of a gun barrel begins to take over the imagery, zooming in closer, closer, and closer. The ghost is overwhelmed by the feeling of bliss that comes over him, partly due to the heroin he just shot up, but also the visions he's trying to communicate while pushing back on what he perceives as an assault, continuing now even after he's dead. The next song is called In the Room Where the Steelhead Glistened, and it's a waltz sung by Ghost. In the room where the steelhead glistened, maximum bullshit theology. Do you think that could happen without reason? My well-planned nightmare, ha ha! Reborn, but no stink of inhibition. Qui vivra vera. Ghost addressing the audience. And by the way, I'm innocent. Investigator, annoyed, jumps up from his chair. Ghost is typing, pausing only to light his cigarette and refill his whiskey glass. A reader offers help with the laptop, and the ghost shoos her away. Investigator, recitative. I don't think you recognize the gravity of the situation. The entire issue of your literary reputation depends on the truth winning out. Despite the depraved lunacy that made you famous, you are immortal, but maybe not forever. We could destroy you, lower than lick spittle, worse than Nixon. Looking up, Ghost. Fuck off! Like I asked to be immortal? Pause, scene change. Okay, here's the key point. As you all know, William S. Burroughs was known for a lot of things: brilliant, crazy, demented, utterly honest, unrestrained, poetic, autobiographical, fractured novels, notably Naked Lunch. But he may be even more well known for the fact that he shot his wife in the head in Mexico City from a distance of 6 feet, drunk, at a party. His wife is Joan Vollmer. The shooting was in 1951. It was a twisted replay of the William Tell legend, which you all know. The father, with a bow and arrow, shoots an apple off his son's head. Only in Mexico City in 1951, it was a glass of also negro, cheap Mexican gin on top of his wife's head, except he missed, and he shot her in the forehead. We're not going to show that in the opera. We're not going to show it. She shoots him in the opera. Because in the opera, we can make up anything we want. It happened in Mexico City on Monterey Boulevard. It was in an apartment upstairs from a bar called the Bounty. The building and the bar are still there. I've been there. I live in Oaxaca, Mexico now. I went to that bar. It's now kind of a restaurant, working class restaurant. The owner has posted photos around of Burroughs and Joan and newspaper articles from the time it happened. And on the side, outside, he's got a banner outside, La Leyenda de William S. Burroughs. He's happy to have such notoriety. Every month, 4 or 5 Americans like me show up looking for evidence of the events of those days. We turn the story around here. So Joan's going to enter along with her 2 children. One, Julie, who doesn't have any speaking parts and has never been interviewed. She's either dead now or in her 80s. That's her leitmotif. She has no voice, but she has a big role to play in Act 3. The other child, William S. Burroughs Jr., is going to return in Act 2. And he had a tough life. Act 1, Scene 2. Joan enters. Lights rise. Fog. Children. The future. She's elegant in her beachwear. The readers are into it, playing volleyball, fucking. Video. The sea becomes South Texas. Fields, farm equipment, long straight highways, gray sky. Joan sits down, her legs pulled up. She holds in a twisted pose, looking to the rear of the stage. The strings persist, struggling in the key of E. Joan seems tired and tries again and again to sing, but she keeps sinking back into herself. The sky overtakes everything else. It's a gray, flat landscape. The children, Julie and Billy, appear at stage left. Julie holds back. She says nothing. Billy's dragging a heavy suitcase. He moves slowly toward Joan and into the spotlight. He squints at it, covering his eyes, and lets go the suitcase at the edge of the light. He walks to her. His mother holds him. He carries a stuffed lamb with no eyes. Investigator has stepped off the stage, but now reappears just out of the wing, stage right. He folds his arms and stares at them, saying nothing at first. Meanwhile, Ghost and a reader, a handsome young boy, they're sitting at the table drinking, joking, flirting. They start to argue. The boy stalks off, leaving the Ghost sitting there alone. The investigator steps forward, addressing the Ghost. Investigator, recitative. Now there appears a woman. To you she is tangled. She struggles even to walk, but she had a voice. She could talk to you in hotel rooms. She was better than you. This apparition, this woman, clears off all nightmares and cobwebs and kitchens where only the dope gets cooked and only Rusky, your favorite cat, who you love more than any person, the only one who eats. All the damage, abuse, and torment, why not? Last words of Timothy Leary. To be immortal, what a pity, all the dying that would surround you. Ha! This universe is a joke, and you all think you're in on it. Well, you're not. Let's recall the liquid evening streetlights and her skin covering chemicals in the movement of Mexico City. She became human, luminous, forgiving. She forgot all about you. She fell in love with an old who was old all his life because he planned to die a young man. She couldn't stand anything he wrote, and the smell of the sea moves head first. She is your prosecutor, and no indictment really mattered except hers, and certainly none more in Mexico City. Ghost.
Good shooting, good shooting, good shooting.
Now I want to introduce Dee Dee Anderson. Nobody's ever confused me for an opera singer, certainly not a soprano. Dee Dee, who performed improv and children's theater at Stanford University, has agreed to help us out with Joan's song. It's called That Light's Bright Enough. Alone now in South Texas, Joan faces up to it and gathers her best song.
That light's bright enough. I got my sunglasses on. I still see the filth of your bathroom sink, and where you put things I wouldn't have wanted to know. Had been once alive. I'm closing my eyes this time, not because I'm afraid. You know how I am. I never could stand the sight of blood or the lamb.
Gray becomes orange and red, more water. Descending into the river Styx, she drowns, but only for a moment.
What's the name of your plan? Was it sex? Was it fame or redemption? Rounding the turns on two wheels was enough to prove we'd survive without you.
She works up the next dose.
Never will I forgive
What you did to so many who loved you. What you did to so many who loved you. What you did to so many who loved you.
The video, the readers are coming and going, the language poets, the copy editors, more readers walking backwards, insomniacs, babbling nonsense. They're reading Charles Olson and Lou Welch and David Melnick and the sports pages. Act 1, Scene 3. Ghost and Joan remain on the stage and move to sit down together, but as they pass near one another, at least once exhibit an odd awkwardness and formality. The adult Billy, again with the case, battered now, it's a saxophone case. He walks across the stage, his expression accusatory, but he ends up laughing. Billy tries to play, he doesn't know where to go, but as the saxophone trails off, the melody is picked up by the orchestra. A slight rise of light, a farewell here. Kells Elvins, a character Burroughs knew since childhood in St. Louis, and throughout his life, walks on from stage right. He and Ghost had decided to try a farming operation in South Texas in a border town called Pharr, P-H-A-R-R, where my brother happens to live even today. There's not much there except the billboard at the edge of town. It says, "You've gone too far." Pharr, Texas, that is. It was a running joke even then. Kells and Burroughs start pouring drinks and talking about the farm operation. Billy, more or less ignored, prepares to leave, saying to Ghost, "Dream carefully." Julie walks on from stage right to join Billy. She leads him away as he repeats the line, "Dream carefully, dream carefully." He's not sure he's being heard. Billy walks walks off with his older half-sister. As they disappear into the wings, Kells yells after him. Kells.
Hey man, you've gone too far. Far Texas.
Ha ha ha, yeah, I've heard that before. Billy and Julie disappear. The ghost to Joan and Kells. Some people, when they go, they aren't really gone. But he's really gone. Kells tries to lighten the mood. The farm operation turned out to be a bust, largely because the farmers had no idea what they were doing. All they would do is drive around all the time looking at the crops like they were real farmers, but they had no idea what they were looking at. There were rows of cotton and carrots and peas, and they would take a piss in the peas, which became another standing joke. They'd have a six-pack and attempt to delay the drinking until a respectable hour of the afternoon, but most days it would start earlier and earlier. This next song is called Drive Around and Look at Nothing. Drive around and look at nothing, nothing here to do. Cotton, carrots, and peas, and we pass on the peas. Nothing here to see, nothing here to do. Tank of gas and cigarettes. Wait until 5 o'clock. Action on and shoot again. Well, after 2 will do. Keys to the car. Oh, it's drinking time and far. Joan and the ghost and Kells join in, they're laughing. Oh yeah, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. Far Texas, that is. Most of the dialogue here is taken from real accounts of what happened in Mexico City, but it's turned around here in the Texas-Mexico borderlands. Kells and Ghost continue their boozy duo. Joan occasionally joins in, wobblier as the song progresses, dropping out while she works on finding her Benzedrine, fishing vials from her purse. Then she dumps her purse out on the table and some things spill onto the floor where the vials roll around. She breaks them open with the heel of her shoe. Among the items that land on the floor, a pistol. Joan is fucked up now, points the gun at the ghost, who feigns cowardice and then laughs. Wait a minute, Joan. Let me set the glass. He puts the glass on his head. Let's see, this is the hard part. We'll have some glue or something. Maybe no hat, that's better. He thinks better of it. He pours another shot. Then he moves his chair to the side of the stage and sits down drunkenly and puts the glass back on his head. Ghost, come on, Joan, let me have it.
Maybe that's not such a good idea.
Joan moves over toward Bill, right up to his chair, turns around, counts 10 paces, turns, fires, and aims. The ghost falls to the floor. He's dead again. Joan, hey, don't ham it up, Bill. Readers drift off and return, bringing in some more tables. They move around aimlessly in the background. They become customers. Everybody's had it with Texas. The bar room becomes now the Bounty. It's on a street corner in Mexico City. Joan helps the bloodied ghost stand up. As a side note, if you're a ghost, you're never really dead. He brushes her aside, he wipes away the blood, he joins in the finger snapping. Rather than focus on the shooting, we're just going to focus on what happened after the shooting, which is the lack of legal consequences for William S. Burroughs. I think he spent 11 days in a lockup in Mexico City. That was basically it. And the reason he got off so easy is because of a character, this Falstaffian character, Mexico City version, named Bernabe Plurado. The next song is called Amigos. trust. Aye, aye. Trust is a must. He's one you gotta meet. He's discreet. Aye, aye, aye. Amigo, I got news for you, buddy. Bad time for you. Little Chica's upstairs, somehow dead. But I got good news too, little brother. You didn't say what you said. No de Houston, okay, no de Houston. No de Houston, okay, no de Houston. You didn't say what you said. No need to worry. You can move to LA, marry an actress. So that's famosa in la cama. You're a faggot, but you fuck like a pimp. Woo! Listen here, little brother. The gun fell on the table. You were cleaning it. Everybody saw that. Not like you said. Ita trágicamente se disparó y la bala le da la cabeza de ella. Y la bala le da en la cabeza. No dijiste lo que no dijiste. You didn't say what you said. Did you say what you said? Ay, ay, ay. Did you say what you said? Did you say what you said? General barroom scene. Coins are flipped. Bets placed. Money changing hands. Rounds of shots. Pockets picked. Burroughs pockets most of the cash. The ghost nods agreement with the lawyer's strategy and buys around. Things quiet down. And he drops the coin in the jukebox. It's coming in now. Same train should go. California special. Back on the Bakersfield. And I ain't even moved since 6:10 this morning. When the doors get closed on this lonely town. I'm gonna buy my own ticket and head off to Seattle, maybe San Diego. It's always summer down there. I'll just get on board, heartbreak and Stetson. It's all I need to start again. I watch the door slide open, and I pray to see her. Maybe she changed her mind. Back home in Bakersfield, I only saw some cowboy. His face a reflection when the door slid closed. One more time. Gonna buy my own ticket, head off to Seattle, maybe San Diego. It's always summer down there. I'll just get on board, heartbreak and Stetson. That's all I'll need to start again. That's all I'll need to start again. That's all I'll need to start again. Okay, so that's the end of Act One. The idea is he plays a jukebox, and that song continues during the intermission when the curtain comes down and people just, house lights come up, and that song just kind of continues. It's just a country song. Act Two begins, rhythm section from the orchestra as the curtain rises. And we're just gonna cut this way down because appreciate your time coming here. And we're gonna try to just give you a sense of the songs in Act 2, because it's a little more spooky and difficult without the video and the acting. But at least, I think there's 4 songs. 4 songs, right? Something like that. Give or take. Only a few elements of those songs, like that one we just did, we cut it short. Focusing on Billy's attempt, William S. Burroughs Jr.'s attempt to reconnect with his father, who's now living in Tangier, Morocco. At that time, Tangier was its own separate and essentially lawless city-state, expat community, very large expat community. The Mexico-Texas borderland now becomes the interzone of Morocco. Scene 1, the video, highway signs, movement, random arrows pointing this way and that. No more long rows of cotton, carrots, and peas. Now it's long hallways and highways and grand petit taxis. The words are a mix of many languages and glyphs, upside down numbers, French, Latin, Greek, highway signs, bad graphics, alternating messages, red city, this way, western lands, this way, the Lower East Side, eventually Tangier. Billy enters carrying a suitcase now, clothes spilling out, he's a mess. The other people pay him no mind. He clearly has no idea which way to go. The orchestra begin with the percussion, the strings begin, and now Billy. The song is called The Rocket and Roll. I'm on my way to the rocket Gibraltar. See the moon rising over Africa. Call Big Bill, like to surprise him. Take the ferry at Tarifa. I'm on my way to Tangier. The reader, with the head of a bird, takes him by the hand, hands him a pipe. They each take a toke and slowly walk toward Tangier. Scene 2. And here's what Billy finds there. An apartment, sparsely furnished, smoky, bottles, a couple of readers necking, the ghost at work. He barely looks up. The investigator is here too, taking notes. He's looking at the bottles and the paraphernalia. He uses a handkerchief to pick up a used syringe, a gun, a box of ammunition, which he puts in his briefcase. Readers bring in the furniture, etc., all the stuff as Billy arrives. No one is paying him any mind. Finally, the ghost notices him, walks over, and puts his hand tenderly on his shoulder. Now here's a recorded version of the song we call Agent Lee. Billy discovers his father's not exactly dad material. Realizing his fate traveled with him,
I scored a
he shows his father the pain that will haunt the ghost.
Agent Lee. I got the itch and scratched it until I got the bleed. He is the skin back, meat as black as ink. I'd laugh if it surprised me. I think I need a drink. I wake a rumpled mess and breathe between the pages. Reality is cigarette smoke, the wall stained by the ages. At least my typewriter knows what's at stake as I change its ribbon. The echo of gunfire whispers an understood given. Suits, ties, and fedoras are the uniform that we wear. One step ahead of Johnny Law. Be cool and don't look scared. Artists and dealers, agents and writers, the edges tend to bleed. We ignore the maps and wander past, anxious of our need. Paranoia understands and watches for the man, while we write new possibilities they can never understand. Games we play in
Billy discovers his father's not dad material, and shows his father the pain that will haunt them both. This next song is called Cursed from Birth. Well, I was cursed from birth, I was barely even born. I cast my new eyes down, saw my little heart been torn. Had not much to brag about, except my mama's lack of inhibition. I tried to be my father's son, but I failed the audition. Everybody said they loved me, wondered what they all meant. Everybody towered above me, got as low can get. I learned a few good magic tricks, like how to shed my skin. I fell behind a few months later, was out before I got in. I was cursed from birth, born in 47. Cursed from birth, famous son of naked lunch. Cursed from birth, born in 47. Cursed from birth, but I died infinite. Billy Jr. is strung out on speed, unable to take care of himself. He winds up busted in New York. Allen Ginsberg bails him out of the Tombs, and the two share a moment, sitting together on a fire escape on the Lower East Side. Ginsberg tries out a come-on line for a potential lover he's met. The song is sung by the Ginsberg character. It's called "I'm Your Lovesick Cantaloupe Bride." I'm your lovesick cantaloupe bride. I'm at my best in the middle of the night. Oh, my night, stay with me tonight. That song continues, but we're going to stop it right there. The curtain comes down.
Like that for a while.
We always envisioned, and by the way, this is our outline on the wall. It's hard to read, but we pictured Alan in a sexy nurse's outfit. Act 3. Okay, so everybody with your reader parts, you're ready. We're going to read this in the style I think maybe some of these guys would prefer. Among other things, you know, the great writing he did and the fact that he shot somebody and got away with it and inspired punk rock and grunge and other things. Saturday Night Live appearance. Burroughs also, if not pioneered, along with Brian Geisen, his colleague, at least popularized the poetics technique known as the cut-up method. And Act 3 of our opera is kind of a cut-up of the first two acts. So the reading and the singing is going to be kind of staggered to accentuate some of that. Hopefully you'll get the idea. Act 3, New York City, the Peace Eye bookstore on the Lower East Side, headquarters of the downtown counterculture. It's about to open. Everybody will be there for the party. And here, back to the laptop, the bottle empty, the ghost is writing at the small table at the side of the stage. As the orchestra fades to a single violin, percussion, guitar, 3 chords, low spotlight on the ghost as he rises, faces the audience. He glances at what he's just written, tosses it aside. Investigator, in a state of grace on Waverly Place. No, there are accidents, chance leads failure. Time needs no reason. The past decays. Rescues entropy, never enough. Circles in the gutter. Falling sea. No, there are accidents. There is no reason. like the edge of the world. Skin of the body. No outer limits. Start of the real God's mercy. Rim of my glasses. Sexual friction. Left on the edge of the bathroom sink, like an attachment to death. A taste of religion in the calm of a sailor, forever lost in the sea of Cortez. Don't follow me, oh you fools. Don't follow me. You can fuck God in the ass, but don't follow me. Believe in your saxophone. Worship your next breath. But don't believe me. Don't follow me. Don't leave me. Oh, you fools. Don't follow me. The readers are busy building the bookstore. They're pushing carts around and shelves, forming the inside of the bookstore, some chairs for reading. Joan wanders around, consulting a reader now and then. She shows interest in some of the books, but not others. She sits down to read, a light for her. A generally chaotic scene of moving furniture, Gregory Corso, insults, poetry soup. Julie is here too, ever watchful, ever silent. Ghost returns to his desk and focuses on the work. The spotlight moves to the investigator. Investigator with E. Books all around and torment. Books all around. No need for holding on to the human perception. No need for holding luminous to the human mariachi music back of his chair. Luminous. Her skin becomes mariachi edge. She falls into back of his chair. Her skin becomes the edge. An open laptop falls into pure and reclines in a cesspool. An open laptop motives pure. The investigative reclines in a cesspool. The role of a mortal intellect stories could destroy. The investigative steelhead listened. Stages the role of a mortal that maybe stories could destroy you more than Nixon. Depends on truth. Stage is dark. Be a woman bloody. Suddenly turns an entire issue. Except for the ghost of the depraved lunatic struggles to walk. It depends on truth. Be a woman bloody and tangled violins. Ghost of the depraved lunatic struggles to walk in the room where the steelhead glisten. Maximum bullshit famous. Don't even stand up. Not for looking up. The orchestra finds Lickspill. Sea legs woman throws off all apparition of the nightmares. Here's a long looking up. Ghost asks to be immortal. What we now call the child. Billy appears on the steps and just out. Here's a long she hangs. Not too sad as a child. More to the wing stage. Older now from stage left. Still dragging, strangling. Right brave silence in a chair. Sad dead now as the child, Billy, bald and far, the heavy into the light. covering eyes as she lets her legs pull up in a cafe table. 2, silence in the chair. Bring in some chair. His mother holds him, struggling to roll out her short bar. Joan enters, lights rise, fog, children, the future. The young man angry, viewed from the side as a couple. The elegant bar stools twisted over and shrouded, cry. Lights down, scene 2, Joan and the readers. The readers enter and exit. They're changing into each other's clothes right on stage. Julie appears as a guard. She's armed. She's got a beret. She looks like Patty Hearst. Joan comes to center stage. There's a hubbub in the background. This is where you're rustling your papers. Rustling in the background are papers. On the video, it's unclear where we are. Poetry Soup, Blabbermouth Night, Ginsberg, East Coast, West Coast, 1950s, 60s, Jack Spicer, The Forgotten Rainbow Dishwashers, Poetry Soup, Shakespeare, Visible, Blake, Whitman, Pound, Iggy Pop, Lou Reed, Warhol, Kurt Cobain, Lady Ottoline, Virginia Woolf, Mailer, D.H. Lawrence, Joyce, Alfalfa and our gang, Vietnam. It subsides, the bookstore complete. People are reading. Julie, as usual, fades to the background, but menaces. That was a menace. Joan steps to the front and faces the quieted crowd. And Judy's going to do this part too. This is called That Light's Name Will Forgive the Sea, which we're going to fracture.
That light's name will forgive the sea. I still see the rounding. Many matter
That light's
except
name
filth of your
still
bathroom
see
sink
the rounding.
indictment.
Will forgive the sea,
All certainly in Mexico.
Many
I
matter
wouldn't and always will.
except filth of your bathroom.
And where you are, 2 wheels, the sea moves head first.
Certainly, I wouldn't
Survive the language
know
poets.
his will in Mexico.
The smell of sticks descending into prosecutor.
And where you are 2 wheels,
And put
the
things.
sea moves head first.
I wouldn't the suitcase I'm
Survive the
closing
language
and always
poets.
will.
The smell of
Loved you,
sticks
my eyes, this time.
descending into prosecute.
I'm afraid of your plan.
And put things.
After a time, will I
wouldn't the
forgive
suitcase
not
I'm
because
closing
fame
loved
or
you, my
redemption
eyes, this
of the
time.
lamb you did?
I'm afraid of your plan.
The boy rise, he takes alive,
After a time,
continues his way, turns the
forgive.
suitcase, and she
Not
drowns.
because fame or redemption
I drowned,
of the lamb you did.
but the woman watching to
The
prove
boy
exits
rises,
now.
he takes alive, continues his
Will
way,
I
turns the
forgive?
suitcase, and she drowns.
And where
I
you've
drowned.
wanted without you. Alive. Alive. Alive.
Thank you. Scene 3, at the Peaside Bookstore. It's a chaotic scene as the rest of the readers enter. Having built the Fugs bookstore, now they're singing. They become hippies and lunatics. They each seem to have entered the realm of some writer in the pantheon. Some walk around balancing a book on their head. It's called the Peaside. Typing up a poem for the fucking press. Donald's dick sticking out his party dress. Maximus man comes dripping out from the sea. From the upstairs window, feather falls and out of the sea. Peaside, Peaside, Peaside. And we piss on the beach. Over the side in 45 Manhattan Bridge. Julie's still alive. 3 little rooms, a sink in the back, and a mountain of strictly kosher chicken fat. Peaside, Peaside, Peaside. And we piss on the beach. Somebody gets a piece of the unmade bed. Kerouac's got a flag wrapped clockwise around his head. Rolling like villains along St. Mark's Place. Shoplifting oranges from the Puerto Rican place. The army of angels on the Lower East Side. We're hijacking buses, moving nationwide. Scandalous grapefruit under the wheels. Lawnmowers levitating lemon peel. halt to the merrymaking. One of the readers assumes the role of the mysterious Lady Ottoline, who, by the way, was an early pacifist and peace activist, center of the literary scene around the time of the First World War. She was polyamorous, probably the inspiration for Lady Chatterley in the D.H. Lawrence novel. She rarely bathed. She had a very large nose. She wore outlandish clothing. Construction workers would laugh at her when she walked by, but she could give a fuck. She deserves to be immortal, which really means to be remembered. So here she emerges to lead the party once again, convening her circle of admirers, while Julie stands at the ready. The readers give her an introduction. This song is called Lady Ottoline. Symbol of the life of lovers and quarrels, Bertrand Russell's mistress, wife of Philip Morrow. One against the war, too hot except in Florence, two baths a year cleaned up by D.H. Lawrence. Lady Ottoline, lover in a dream. Lady Ottoline, lover of the sea. Abyssinian royalty, Zanzibar flag, rolling on the train or the navy in the back. Always was a laugh, 7 in a room, elegance of faking, waiting for the room. Lady Ottoline, lover in a dream. Lady Ottoline, lover of the sea. Exaggerated wishbones, pioneers of king. Where'd you go for respite? Where'd you buy the lamps? Lady of the palace, Bloomsbury queen. Love and open marriage seem to be seen. Love and open marriage seem to be seen. Love and open marriage seem to be seen. Okay, Pat Anderson, who is the mother of David. Okay, so you ready? You reader people? You're going to stand up and read it once, and then everybody's going to read it once, and then you're all going to read it at the same time. The orchestra falls back, and one by one the readers begin raising the garbled words of dead writers, major and minor, reading excerpts and echoes of excerpts over and over, continuing on their life, taking and relinquishing the pulpit. Julie won't tolerate the cacophony, and she readies her weapon. Two measures of Lady Ottoline. Jack Spicer.
Death is not final, only parking lots.
Shakespeare quoting Macbeth.
And all our yesterdays have lighted pools, the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle.
Walt Whitman from the Song of the Open Road.
At home, afoot and light-hearted, I take to the open road.
Iggy Pop, Lust for Life.
Hey man, that's great. Where'd you get that lotion?
William Blake from the Visions of the Daughters of Albion.
Arise, you little glancing wings, and sing your infant joy.
Allen Ginsberg, first line of Howl.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked.
Apollinaire from Ocean of Earth.
I built a house in the middle of the ocean. Its windows are rivers which flow out of my eyes.
Denise Levertov, great poet from The Recognition.
Nothing will happen. A transparence of the flesh, revealing not bones, but the shape of bones.
The investigator has reached his conclusion. Now here we go.
Hey man, that's great.
Arise, arise, arise. Pain, pain, pain. Alive, alive, alive. Pain, pain, pain. Alive, arise, arise, arise. Pain, daughters of Albion echo back her sighs. And the daughters of Albion echo back her sighs. And the daughters of Albion echo back her sighs. And the daughters of Albion echo back her sighs. Julie takes them all down, one by one. The ghost props himself up by his elbow and recites his favorite lines, the well-known lines from Macbeth. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Thank you very much. At the end, you've got a part in the production and War Memorial. So I hope we kept it to less than an hour. I think we probably did. Not sure. But
Perfect. Right on time.
the real thing will hopefully be a couple hours or something like that. Not your typical German opera of 5 hours and you wonder what the hell you saw. It's going to be pretty entertaining. I hope you enjoyed it. Like some feedback, and there's some stuff in there.